Finally forced out. The former Prince, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has officially left Royal Lodge and will live in a home on Sandringham Estate in Norfolk. It comes as his brother speaks out on the Epstein scandal for the first time.
Prince Andrew is facing increasing pressure to move out of the Royal Lodge at Windsor, with representatives of King Charles reportedly in talks over the disgraced royal's home.
Prince Andrew and ex-wife Fergie could soon be moving out of their 30-bedroom mansion, reportedly agreeing to pack up Royal Lodge on one condition. And this is the sticking point.
Bit of the jigsaw puzzle, the final part of the demise of the former prince.
Yeah, that's right. They had waited a bit and they put up vast sort of protection around the house, because just in case, anyone wants to come in and try and move things around, politely saying.
Yeah. What were they taking? I mean, bearing in mind...
They were taking paintings and valuable things.
A 64-year-old man, once a senior royal and former war hero, who once stood at the center of the British monarchy's grand ceremonies. Now picture him standing outside a 5-bedroom farmhouse in rural Norfolk, pest control vans nearby, scaffolding half-built, the faint smell of damp hanging in the air, and according to sources, Prince Andrew losing his temper. Welcome to Crown Ara, where royal drama gets broken down piece by piece, and trust me, you do not want to miss what unfolds next. Subscribe now and stay with the channel for the latest twists, major claims, and non-stop royal updates.
A number of UK papers are now reporting that Prince Andrew is in advanced talks with Buckingham Palace to give up his lease at Royal Lodge, a 30-room mansion on the Windsor estate. It emerged earlier this week that the King's brother has been paying next to nothing to live at the Royal Lodge.
That is the scene insiders say unfolded during Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's first visit to Marsh Farm, the property King Charles has reportedly designated as his new home. And the reaction? According to multiple reports across the Mirror, the Daily Mail, and Hello magazine, Andrew described the house with barely hidden disbelief, calling it pokey and ramshackle. One outlet used a single brutal word to summarize his response: tantrum. Not frustration, not disappointment, a tantrum. From a man who was once addressed as Your Royal Highness, a man who hosted world leaders and walked the halls of Buckingham Palace as though they were built for him. But this story isn't just about anger over a smaller house. It's about something deeper.
Mimi Becker is outside the former royal's former residence, Royal Lodge. Mimi, he snuck out overnight.
Pete, in the cover of darkness on Monday night, the disgraced royal booted out of his 30-room mansion, and he'll now live around a 3-hour drive away at Sandringham Estate in Norfolk. This move has been months in the making since Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was stripped of his titles.
What happens when lifelong privilege suddenly collides with reality? Because when someone who has spent their entire life surrounded by power and luxury is forced to confront consequences, the reaction can reveal far more than the situation itself. To understand why Andrew reportedly reacted so strongly, we first need to look at the property itself. Marsh Farm sits several miles away from the main Sandringham house in Norfolk.
Apparently he's had lots of art in his previous home, and he wants all that taken through. So the lorries that are taking him are actually the ones that the royals actually use, because they're very reliable. They don't break anything. Yeah. And
that would be a story, wouldn't it?
Yes, and so that's what he's going on. So I wonder who's paying. It must be King Charles, who's paying for that as well.
It's a 5-bedroom farmhouse on the royal estate, surrounded by countryside. And by almost anyone's standard, that description sounds like an extraordinary home. Spacious, private, and surrounded by some of the most beautiful countryside in England. For most people, that description sounds like a dream home. But for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, Duke of York, the reaction was reportedly the opposite. According to the Mirror, Andrew was appalled by the property. The Daily Mail reported that a source said he really did not want Marsh Farm and had not lived anywhere that small since leaving his apartment at Buckingham Palace decades ago. Think about that. Decades. For more than 20 years, Andrew lived at Royal Lodge, a 30-room mansion inside Windsor Great Park. 30 rooms, large private grounds, total seclusion. Homes like that do more than provide comfort. They create a world where everything reinforces the idea that you are important, that you belong to a rare and privileged class.
If you know, he's got 72 teddies and he loves them, and they've all got to come over.
He's a grown man. What's wrong with the bloke?
I think there's quite a few things wrong with the bloke.
Well, that's very true, yes. So his teddy collection will be protected by these diligent removal
and they have
people.
they have to be in absolutely the right place, and each member of staff who has to do this.
Yeah.
Now imagine moving from that environment to a 5-bedroom farmhouse. The contrast alone is dramatic. But according to reports, the size reduction wasn't even the worst part. When Andrew visited Marsh Farm to inspect the renovations, reportedly checking measurements and reviewing the work, pest control vans were seen parked outside the property. Reports suggested there could be a rodent issue, though it was never officially confirmed. Still, the image itself was striking. A former royal inspecting a modest farmhouse while pest control vehicles sat in the driveway. There were also claims the property might face flood risks due to its location. And although the estate had begun improvements, installing CCTV, perimeter fencing, security systems, broadband upgrades, and landscaping for privacy, many of those changes were still unfinished. So when Andrew arrived, he wasn't seeing the final version of the property. He was seeing it in its roughest state. According to multiple sources, his reaction was intense. Words used included visibly angry, openly furious, and once again, that same word appeared in several reports, tantrum.
He does need to make a decision. The trouble is he's wanted Andrew out of Royal Lodge for some time now, and what he did was he turned off his financial taps. He had a tap that was coming in from his mother, the late Queen, for spending money. He also had a tap coming in of finances to provide security for Andrew.
And that raises an interesting question. When a 64-year-old man, raised in the highest levels of royal privilege, reacts this strongly to a 5-bedroom farmhouse on a royal estate, what does that reveal about the life he has lived? But this story isn't really about the farmhouse, it's about the man. To understand Andrew's reaction, you have to understand what he's leaving behind, not just physically, but psychologically. Royal Lodge was never just a house. It was the last visible sign that Prince Andrew still belonged inside the royal world. Even after the Epstein scandal, the loss of his military roles, and the disastrous BBC Newsnight interview, he still had something that looked like status. He still lived in a 30-room mansion in Windsor Great Park. That address meant everything. Royal Lodge quietly told the world, and perhaps Andrew himself, that he hadn't completely fallen. Not yet. Andrew moved into Royal Lodge in 2003 and reportedly spent millions renovating it. Over time, the house became more than a residence. It became part of his identity.
For Waitrose, and that's the difference. I mean, it's sort of awful but ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it is. But then when you've got a teddy bear's picnic to organise, I mean, you need to make sure
Well
you've got
said.
your food. You need to make sure you've got your food in store.
Yeah,
that's going to be when somebody says make a sandwich, Andrew. I mean, if he doesn't know how to make a sandwich.
So when pressure started building for him to leave, particularly as King Charles signaled the property should eventually go to Prince William and his family, Andrew didn't simply step aside. He resisted. Reports say he explored legal options, questioned lease agreements, and delayed the move for months, far longer than many people expected. His refusal itself became a story, a symbol of a man struggling to accept the reality of what had happened to him. And that resistance reveals something important. Andrew knew the trajectory of his situation. His HRH title was removed. His military honors were stripped away. His public royal role effectively ended. Piece by piece, the structure that had supported his life was being dismantled in full public view. Anyone watching could see where it was heading, but knowing something is coming is very different from accepting it, especially if you've spent your entire life protected by privilege. Think about Andrew's biography. He was born into one of the most powerful families in the world. Educated at Gordonstone and the Royal Military College, he served as a helicopter pilot during the Falklands War, a role many observers say he carried out with real courage. Later, he became a UK trade envoy, representing Britain internationally for years. even while controversy followed him because of his associations and business connections. Through all of those chapters, there was always a safety net, a title, a residence, a role within the royal structure, something that maintained the idea that Prince Andrew still mattered. But Marsh Farm removes that safety net. It represents the moment where the royal system finally stops cushioning the fall. And that reported tantrum may reveal what happens when someone who has never truly had to stand alone is suddenly asked to do exactly that. To understand how this moment became inevitable, we need to go back to October 2024, because that was the turning point. That was the month Andrew was officially stripped of his remaining royal titles and honors, all of them. Buckingham Palace released a statement that, even by royal standards, was unusually direct, and it marked the moment when the final pieces of Andrew's royal life began to disappear. The palace statement released about Prince Andrew was carefully written, and every word mattered. It referenced serious lapses of judgment and repeated King Charles's sympathy for victims and survivors of abuse. Those phrases were not accidental. Royal statements go through layers of legal review and approval. When Buckingham Palace publicly uses language like that about a member of the royal family, it becomes more than criticism. It becomes an institutional judgment. Andrew continues to deny all allegations connected to his association with Jeffrey Epstein, and that remains his legal position. But regardless of his personal stance, his role within the monarchy has changed permanently. He is no longer His Royal Highness in an official capacity. He holds no formal titles or patronages. He performs no public royal duties. And he receives no official public role within the institution he was born into. In practical terms, he is no longer a working member of the royal family. And the move to Sandringham, specifically Marsh Farm, symbolizes that reality in physical form.
Where does this guy get off demanding 2 houses?
Yeah, they're giving up 1 and demanding 2 in return, according to some reports. I'm not sure that is necessarily going to get everyone off Andrew's back, is it? So he's got Royal Lodge, big old house, you can see it there. More bedrooms than I've got, put it that way. And the reports are that he would move into what's known as Frogmore Cottage. You might remember that when we were talking about it about 5 years.
Royal commentator Robert Jobson captured the situation clearly in comments to Hello magazine. He said Andrew appears to be kicking his heels and making it clear to the king and courtiers that he is not going quietly. Those words are revealing, because what does not going quietly actually mean at this point? Andrew has already lost the titles. He has already lost the official roles. The battle over Royal Lodge was the final place where he could resist. And now, even that chapter is ending. Reports say removal vans have been spotted, and the timeline for his departure has been set. His 65th birthday in mid-February marks the point when the keys to Royal Lodge return to the Crown Estate. As Jobson noted, the decision has already been made. This is not a negotiation. It is not an ongoing debate. And Andrew's personal feelings about the outcome no longer change the outcome itself. The decision has been made by King Charles, by the institution, and by forces far larger than one former duke. Yet according to reports, Andrew is still resisting, still angry, still frustrated about the move, which raises an important question. What does that reaction say about the gap between how Andrew sees himself and how the world, including his own family, now sees him? And that brings us to another figure who plays a crucial role in this story, Sarah Ferguson. For decades, Sarah Ferguson has been the one constant in Prince Andrew's life. They divorced in 1996, but they never truly separated. Sarah continued living with Andrew at Royal Lodge, and she defended him publicly, often at moments when many others quietly stepped away. Through interviews and television appearances, she helped maintain the image of a united front. Whether that unity was always real or partly symbolic, it gave Andrew something important, the sense that someone in his life still stood firmly beside him. The arrangement itself was unusual. 2 divorced people living together in a royal residence for nearly 3 decades is not easy to explain. Yet, in its own unconventional way, it seemed to work. And perhaps most importantly, it meant Andrew was never completely alone. But now, reports suggest that situation may be changing. Sarah Ferguson is also expected to leave Royal Lodge, though where she will live next has not been officially confirmed. More strikingly, recent coverage no longer describes Andrew and Sarah as a solid team. Instead, journalists are mentioning distance. Some reports even suggest a cooling of loyalty, with phrases implying that Sarah, and possibly even his daughter, Princess Eugenie, have stepped back from defending him as strongly as before. If those reports are accurate, the picture becomes stark. Andrew would not just be losing a house, he would be losing the two women who have been closest to him.
He's doing that. He hopes to get in early April, but everything has to be done. They've done the carpets, they've done the painting, they've done everything. So he'll go in there. But actually, there's a big difference. Instead of him just looking after things himself, he had to check through that his teddy bears have arrived.
That means facing his dramatically altered future without the personal support system that once softened earlier blows. Then comes another surprising twist. Some reports claim Andrew has expressed interest in dating again. Pause on that for a moment. A 64-year-old man who has lost his royal titles, his public role, his mansion, and possibly the strongest relationships in his life, is now reportedly considering a return to the dating world. There are two possible explanations. The first is that Andrew may be deeply disconnected from the scale of the changes happening around him, focusing on personal matters while his public world collapses. The second possibility is that people close to him are leaking this story deliberately, perhaps to shape public perception or redirect attention. Neither interpretation is particularly flattering, but both reveal something important. Andrew's support network appears to be shrinking. The person who stood beside him longest may now be stepping back. And without that support, a man who has rarely had to stand entirely on his own could suddenly be facing exactly that reality in a 5-bedroom farmhouse in Norfolk, without titles, without official roles, without the reputation or influence he once carried. It is a profoundly different life from the one he lived for decades. And while it doesn't excuse the reported tantrum, it may help explain the emotional reaction behind it. But the story doesn't end there, because another rumor has been circulating quietly for months, and recently it has begun gaining serious attention. The idea that Norfolk might not be Andrew's final destination at all. Some reports suggest he could be considering a move to Bahrain. These rumors have existed for some time, but the tone of recent reporting has changed. What was once treated as speculation is now being discussed more seriously in royal commentary circles, which raises a new question. Is Marsh Farm actually Andrew's long-term home, or simply a temporary stop before something else happens next? Recent reporting has begun treating the Bahrain possibility with more seriousness. Sources point to Prince Andrew's long-standing connections in the region, relationships built during his years as a UK trade envoy, when he developed business and diplomatic ties that often drew scrutiny and controversy. The idea is that Bahrain could offer Andrew something he cannot easily find in Britain, not just warmth or luxury, though those might exist there too, but something more important psychologically: distance from the British media that has chronicled every stage of his public downfall. In Bahrain, he would not constantly be framed as the disgraced prince. He could simply exist as a man with regional connections and a history of working in that part of the world. If Andrew were to relocate there, it would signal something significant. It would suggest he has concluded, consciously or not, that rebuilding any version of a dignified life inside Britain is impossible, that the weight of the scandal, the scrutiny, and the loss of status has become too permanent and too public to escape within the country. Leaving Britain would mean leaving the story behind. But there is another side to this question, one that rarely gets enough attention. Would King Charles actually allow it? From one perspective, Andrew moving to Bahrain could solve a major problem for the palace. He would be far away from royal events, far away from London, and far away from the constant cycle of negative headlines tied to the royal family. Out of sight, out of mind. But there is another interpretation.
It's entirely possible that, Prince Andrew's got more friends in that part of the world than he does here in the UK at the moment. Look, the bottom line is, the longer he stays in Royal Lodge, and there's this whole debate about how much rent he pays, and I'll be accurate here, Carl, he doesn't pay any rent year on year, but he did up front pay $7.5 million. So
Andrew in Bahrain, with his past network of contacts and his history of controversial business relationships, might place him beyond the palace's influence entirely. If he remains in Norfolk, he is still geographically close. The family can maintain some level of oversight and communication. If he relocates to Bahrain, that influence largely disappears. Who would know who he is meeting, what business discussions he might be involved in, or what agreements he might make? The royal household has spent years trying to contain the damage surrounding Andrew. Sending him overseas might not solve the problem. It might simply relocate it to a place where the palace has far less control. That is the difficult calculation King Charles may ultimately have to consider. But while the public debate continues around Andrew, another group has remained almost completely silent. His daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, have said virtually nothing publicly about their father's situation. Through the stripping of his titles, the battle over Royal Lodge, and the controversy surrounding his move to Marsh Farm, both women have maintained careful public restraint. Instead, they have continued focusing on their own lives. Beatrice with her work and occasional royal duties, Eugenie with her family and her advocacy on issues like anti-trafficking efforts. Neither has publicly defended their father, and neither has publicly criticized him. That silence is striking. Some reports have even suggested that Eugenie may have distanced herself from Andrew, though those claims remain unconfirmed. If true, and it must be stressed that it is only speculation, it would represent one of the most painful developments in this entire story. Because whatever someone thinks about Andrew, the breakdown of a relationship between a parent and their children is never a small thing. It is always, at its core, deeply tragic. But there is another way to interpret the daughter's silence. It may actually be the most strategic choice available to them. By refusing to defend Andrew publicly, they avoid tying their reputations to the controversy surrounding him. And by refusing to condemn him publicly, they avoid deepening the personal fracture within their own family.
But nobody had been using it for quite a while, so they had to clean it up and repair things. But the one he's at the moment is much smaller, so that's not good enough for him. So it's going into this one.
Will he have staff still?
Oh, that's interesting. He had loads of staff. He's never cooked anything for himself, but the king brought it down, so he's had only 3, a chef and 2 people looking after things. But now I think it's only 1, and he has to get his food himself.
In an impossible situation, silence may be the only position that protects both their public lives and their private loyalty. By remaining silent, Andrew's daughters avoid accusations of abandoning their father, while still protecting whatever private relationship may remain. It is a delicate balance. They are navigating an extremely narrow path, protecting their own reputations without completely severing family ties. And they are doing it quietly. No dramatic statements, no interviews, no public strategy, just silence. That restraint is striking, and perhaps a little sad, because when the people closest to you decide that saying nothing is safer than speaking up, it sends its own message, not a legal judgment, not an official condemnation, but a kind of quiet verdict nonetheless. Imagine, for a moment, what that might feel like from Andrew's perspective. Standing outside a farmhouse he clearly doesn't want to move into, already angry, already mourning a life that is slipping away, and knowing that his daughters, the people who once stood closest to him, are choosing not to publicly stand beside him now. It's easy to lose the human side of this story beneath the royal drama, but that emotional reality matters because it leads us to a difficult question. What does accountability actually look like for someone like Prince Andrew? Consider what has already happened. He lost the use of his HRH style. His military titles were removed. His official royal duties disappeared. His lease at Royal Lodge is ending. Now he is being moved to a far smaller home, away from the central circles of royal life and power. He no longer receives an official role within the monarchy. For some members of the public, that is meaningful accountability. They argue that Andrew has paid a heavy price in reputation, in status, in property, and in public standing. Few people born into such privilege have ever faced consequences like that from within the royal system itself. But for others, it is still not enough. They point out that Andrew still lives on a royal estate. He still benefits from security protection and the advantages that come from being born into one of the most powerful families in the world. To many people, the 5-bedroom farmhouse in Norfolk that Andrew reportedly dislikes would still represent extraordinary luxury. And then there is a third perspective, one spoken less often, but still present in the debate. The idea that Andrew's situation may, in some respects, be deeply complicated and morally unresolved. Some people argue that Andrew has effectively been condemned without a criminal conviction. They point out that the civil settlement he reached was not a legal admission of guilt, and that even controversial public figures are entitled to some level of private life. Others strongly disagree. I'm not here to decide which of those views is correct. But there is one aspect of Andrew's reported behavior that raises an uncomfortable question: the tantrum, not the anger itself. Anger, when someone's life collapses publicly, is human. Few people would react calmly while watching their status, reputation, and lifestyle disappear. What is more troubling is where that anger appears to be directed. Reports describe frustration focused on the farmhouse itself, the number of bedrooms, curtains that might not fit, the size of the rooms, even pest control vans parked outside during renovations. Those details reveal something about Andrew's focus. The anger does not seem directed toward reflection about the events that ended his public career.
For the past 20 years, sparking public outrage and calls for the King to step in. A number of government MPs are also calling for Prince Andrew to be pulled in front of an inquiry into the financial arrangements of the lease. Reports are the palace has been pushing the prince to give up the home voluntarily.
It is directed toward the physical loss of status markers, the house, the scale, the postcode, the symbols of privilege that are now disappearing one by one, and that reaction makes sympathy difficult for many observers, because it suggests that the deeper issue may not be loss itself, but the loss of status. So what happens next? Based on current reporting, the timeline looks like this. Andrew is expected to leave Royal Lodge and temporarily move to Wood Farm Cottage on the Sandringham estate, a smaller residence once used by Prince Philip in his later years. That would serve as a temporary step while Marsh Farm renovations are completed. His 65th birthday in mid-February marks the formal handover of Royal Lodge back to the Crown Estate. The target for a permanent move into Marsh Farm is Easter 2025. That is the plan. But whether Andrew fully follows it remains uncertain. He has resisted every stage of this transition so far, delaying, negotiating, and pushing back against each timeline. Still, removal vans have reportedly been seen at Royal Lodge, and renovation work at Marsh Farm is clearly progressing, which suggests that this time, the move may actually happen. If it does, there are several possible paths forward. The first scenario is quiet acceptance. Andrew relocates to Marsh Farm, adapts to a much smaller life, and gradually fades from public attention. For the palace, this would be the cleanest outcome. The controversy slowly disappears, and the monarchy moves forward. The second scenario is continued resistance. Andrew never truly accepts the situation. Every few months, another story emerges. Frustration about the farmhouse, complaints about the move, or reports of new tensions within the family. In that case, the story never quite ends, and Prince Andrew remains a lingering problem for the monarchy long after the physical move itself is complete. In the second scenario, Andrew continues to resist quietly but persistently. Stories keep appearing. In the headlines, frustration about the farmhouse, complaints about his new life, or tensions with the royal family. In that situation, he becomes a recurring problem the palace can never fully close the door on. The third scenario is the Bahrain option. After spending some time at Marsh Farm, perhaps months, perhaps less, Andrew could announce that he is relocating abroad. He would effectively remove himself from the British media environment that has followed his downfall so closely. In Bahrain, he could build a quieter life based on the business relationships and regional connections he developed during his years as a trade envoy. From the palace's perspective, this might solve one problem. Andrew would be far away from royal events and the constant British press cycle. But it could also create new uncertainties. Operating outside the United Kingdom might place Andrew beyond the influence of the royal household, raising new questions about the kinds of activities or relationships he might pursue there. The fourth scenario is the one many royal observers view as the most dangerous: a rehabilitation attempt, an interview, a documentary, a charitable initiative designed to reshape public perception. In theory, such a move would attempt to soften Andrew's image and reintroduce him to public life. But history offers a warning. The 2019 BBC Newsnight interview remains a lasting example of how badly such attempts can backfire. It showed what happens when Andrew believes he can control a public narrative, and the result was catastrophic. So which scenario do you think is most likely? Quiet acceptance, endless resistance, a move abroad, or an attempt to rebuild his public image? It's a question worth considering because beneath all the details, the farmhouse, the pest control vans, the reported tantrum, the Bahrain rumors, the daughter's silence, there is a deeper issue. What does accountability actually look like? Not just legally, not just institutionally, but socially. What do we, as observers, really expect to see? Do we want the spectacle of a disgraced figure reduced to arguing about curtains and room sizes? Do we want the symbolic image of someone born into enormous privilege forced to confront a smaller life? Or do we want something harder, something closer to genuine reflection? A person who understands not only that their life has changed, but why it changed. Because if that is the standard for accountability, then Andrew's reported reaction at Marsh Farm suggests we may still be very far from that moment. Here is where the story stands. Prince Andrew reportedly arrived at Marsh Farm and reacted with visible anger. He complained about the rooms, the condition of the property, the scale of the house, everything the farmhouse represented. He resisted the move. He delayed the transition. He made it clear he was not leaving quietly, and in doing so, he may have revealed something deeper than any interview or official statement ever could. That even now, after everything that has happened, he may still struggle to separate his identity from the titles, the residences, and the privileges that once defined his life. For most of his life, the titles, the houses, the privilege, they were Prince Andrew's identity. Take those away, and what remains is a man reportedly furious about curtains, about room sizes, about a house that feels smaller than the life he once had. And that reaction says something powerful. Because while Andrew struggles with the reality of Marsh Farm, King Charles has already made his position clear. The institution comes first. A slimmed-down monarchy is not just a preference, it is official policy. And according to the palace, no one, not even the king's own brother, is exempt from that direction. At the same time, another image of the monarchy is emerging. Prince William, seen recently during engagements abroad, connecting with communities far removed from royal estates and titles, represents the future the royal family appears to be choosing. More outward-facing, more modern, more grounded in public service. The contrast between those two paths has rarely been clearer. Sooner or later, Andrew will move into Marsh Farm. The Easter deadline will come. The renovations will finish, and one morning he will wake up in a 5-bedroom farmhouse in Norfolk. At that moment, he will face a question he may never truly have had to answer before. Who is Prince Andrew without the rooms, the titles, and the privileges that once defined him? Whether he accepts that reality or continues to fight it will determine the final chapter of his story. And now, I want to hear from you. 3 quick questions before you go. First, do you think Andrew will ever truly accept his new circumstances, or will he spend the rest of his life resisting them? Second, where do you think he ultimately ends up? Norfolk or Bahrain? And third, do you see this situation as real accountability or something closer to exile dressed up as consequence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This community always has some of the most thoughtful takes on royal stories like this. If you found this breakdown interesting, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who follows royal news. And I'll see you in the next one.